Art Chat TV is brought to you by Linda Fisler Fine Art. Visit her website at lindafisler.com. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art Chat. I'm your host, Linda Riesenberg Fisler. And today I actually am really excited because I get to talk to my old mentor. Old as in we were working together many years ago, not as old man, right, Kevin?
A little of both right now.
No. You look about the same. So, we're cool. So Kevin's been off doing a lot of great things. And we worked together back in 2004, 5, 6, somewhere in there. They should probably do this like 2000, right? But anyway, we worked on Artist Mentors Online. We went to New Zealand together, which I posted some pictures on social media with that. And it was like, oh my God, has it been that long ago? And, I owe Kevin a lot because, he got me started painting and really studying and thinking about how to paint and what to paint and, emotions and all of the wonderful things that I'm sure we'll probably get into in a conversation. So welcome, Kevin.
Well, good to see you, Linda. It's been a long
you.
time. We did a lot of great things together, and some of the things we did, like Artist Mentors Online, we were a little ahead of the curve.
We were.
But we did a nice program that lasted a year, and that was really nice for the students. And I still work with those students.
3 years.
Well, they were year programs, right?
Right, year programs, and we had the first session with the 10 that we had originally, 10 or 12, somewhere in there, and then we had a second year with second year students and first year students, and we still did I think we did something in the third year, half a year or something like that. So at least that's what my taxes show.
But it was a good program we put together.
Was.
But as the computer and pre-Zoom and all those type of things, it was it's an interesting one to try.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a lot of work technically because of where the computer systems were at that time. But now I think I've lost my coding completely because I think it's just totally passed me by. But but it was great. It was a lot of fun. We had the meeting in February in Taos, and me, who's scared to death to drive in snow, we went up and visited there. I had some folks up there as well as a 3-day workshop or something. I think we did. I can't remember all the details, but that was a lot of fun. And I think after everybody left, it started snowing, and it was like, oh my God, we're never going to get out of here. So it was funny.
Well, we did a lot of good things together.
Yeah, we did.
A lot of different facets, and the travel too with Passport and Palette. So it was fun. Yeah. Good to see you, and good to see that you're doing so great.
Yeah, well, hanging in there, and we're going to get into a lot of different subjects, I think, as we talk. The first thing I wanted to talk about is I had noticed that you have a new instruction video out, I think it is, and probably even a book, right? So on the grid method. So tell us a little bit about that and how you got into doing this.
Actually, if you remember when we had done it could have been 2011 when we did the Artist Mentors Online, and we had the group up there. I was working on a very large painting in the studio, and I had lots of lines and ribbons and strings and all this that I was demonstrating how I'm using that to compose such a large and complex painting.
Right.
And from that time period, I really found that helped me so much. And I also incorporated that in my teaching methods, what I call the magic grid. And over time, so literally it's been 10 years in its development of me making a very simplistic way of giving that information out to people. We recently did with Eric Rhodes, the video crew, we did 3 videos called the Magic Grid, one on the whole process, and then one on portrait and one on still life. It works for whatever subject you're doing. Anyway, my Magic Grid video, I think I say it's criminal, like I show because I think it's illegal in 17 states because the universities do not want me to teach this method because it's so encompassing and so easy for people to finally understand how to become an artist. All sorts of painting from drawing, brushwork, composition, color, value seem to fall into place so easily in this method that I share. So the magic grid starts with the underlying structure of compositional lines throughout the painting. So dot, line, and mass. And so really I'm breaking down the two-dimensional surface right away with a mosaic of shapes. And the way I like to teach is that, we're painting flat shapes. We're not painting things, and getting over the thing thinking, which is really important. Once you understand that we're just doing little puzzle pieces of color on a canvas, it's so easy, it's criminal. And so anyway, the way I, over the years of sharing it with some others during my classes, sharing it with myself to find the best ways to help my painting. I really came up with a very thorough video. It's really clearly spoken and understanding, and it takes the math out of when people look at things that also talk about the golden section and the different type of grid system dynamic symmetry, which in many of the few books that are out there from way back, it's very kind of mind numbing. And I make it really simple. And it really just kind of re-enthused my own painting. I use it every painting I do, and it just makes me more creative, and I have fun with it. I'm really enjoying it. So I really, I've done a lot of good books, and I think this is just another step that makes it even easier for people. So.
Right. Yeah, I remember one of the lessons that we did in ammo. Remember, we had to draw the squares, like on a 1620, I don't know, 100 and some, 100 and I don't know, but we had little squares and we had to put just one color in the squares. So I'm wondering, was that the beginning of really starting to think about that magic grid, or had you already been doing that?
That was more an exercise on value control, temperature changes.
Okay.
Try to maintain them in there, but in a sense, it's not different. So, what the magic grid does, for instance, like when we hold out our thumb and we're drawing life drawing, we're measuring, right?
Yep.
And if I'm painting the figure ahead or whatever, I'm looking for plumb lines and things like that. So by just having this structure to start helps us with drawing, because you have many plumb lines and angles. It makes things easier to see. Right. Then when you fill in a mosaic, one little piece of color, like you're talking about, one little square, with brushwork, we forget about the things. So it's like, what color is it? I have to decide what shape, where is that shape? Where in the process of your canvas is that shape? So that's your drawing. You get that in the right place, then your drawing is correct. What is the shape of the shape? It makes you determine a shape. So what I find it's really like a decision maker. When people go up to the painting, I don't know what to paint. I don't know how to compose it. Right away, this gives you kind of ideas, suggestions how to do it. Then every mark you put on the canvas is not a brush mark, but it's a shape that's filled in with your brush. So it tells you, okay, here's my shape. When I look at your head, I have to break up your head into mosaics, little triangles right here, a little circle here, a long shape there. Monet said the same thing. All he looks for is a long line of blue, triangle of turquoise, a round circle of yellow. So this helps us with that decision-making process that people usually, when they start painting or painting for many, many years, just think they're painting things and subject. And so we have to change our thinking. It's a language. Just like me learning Chinese, I have to just learn everything new.
Right.
And so, but when we have our own language, it makes a new language more difficult. When we have a lot of bad habits established from years and years of painting incorrectly, mentally incorrectly, then it's harder to change. So this method, if you've never painted, I can have someone in a couple of days do amazing things. And then I also have done lectures and little demonstrations with some very high professional painters. And they, with the knowledge that they have, the expertise that they have, they really saw that, boy, they grabbed onto it. And I just saw in one day their work change. They were great painters and they just went to another level. It kind of pissed me off that they did so well, better than me. So I'm really enjoying sharing that method, and I highly recommend. I'm not a hard salesman with, I've had 4 good selling books out there, and I feel really proud of all of them, and they still do well. But I really think that this is a game changer for people. If they just do that, it can truly change the way they paint. And they'll end up to paint the way an artist needs to think, the language of an artist, the vocabulary of an artist.
Cool. Just so my audio only listeners can they find this, the book and the video and everything out on your website, which is kevinmcpherson.com?
Yeah, if you look up, it's probably listed on my website, and then it's if you look up Kevin McPherson's, it will come up on Google or wherever it comes up.
Great. Yeah, I'll do I'll just research for my YouTube groups, and I'll put that link
and I'll send you that link too.
Hey, that would be great. And so right now you're in Mexico, and prior to COVID, you were doing a lot of work in China. And I'm sure that the magic grid, was also devised more with some of the things that you have gotten. I guess where I'm going with this question, Kevin, is you have, when I met you, it was plein air, it was landscape, and then you turned to portrait. Maybe a few years after we were working closer together, or maybe it overlapped a little bit. So, and I know a lot of what keeps us going as artists is that challenge to do something different with our painting. Can you talk a little bit about, you've been painting for a long time. College, you studied it in college and you came out from there, and this was your love along with traveling, and you combined the two, which it was wonderful and is wonderful. So talk a little bit about, the inspiration and how that keeps you going, all these different changes that you have seen through your career as an artist.
Yeah, I think for myself, I feel blessed that, I followed that path and kind of made my own path of discovery, and it always worked out. It doesn't say that it's not a struggle at times, but I think when you're following something you're doing, expect some struggles. If you're learning to golf, I think you golf, you and Tom. Right?
Yeah, we used to, but yeah.
Yeah, but you have your self-imposed goals, to do something, and it's very much like golf in the sense it's a very knowledge-based and muscle memory type of thing, but you have to be the intuitive player out there to really become the great player. But painting, I went to University of Northern Arizona University and studied illustration. Then I became an illustrator, and at that time that was my goal, to be the best illustrator, like Bob Peak or Bernie Fuchs, these type of great painters that were doing illustration. And I remember I went to the illustrators workshop, which way back then in 1980, it was a fortunate thing. It was the best of the top illustrators did a workshop, just like now we offer, let's say the Plein Air Painters America group would offer a workshop. So you had the best of the best. And so it was phenomenal. So my goal was to become a great artist, a great illustrator. Then I went to Scottsdale Artist School when that started, and all of the great artists and illustrators from New York were moving to Arizona. They came out there, and so I was fortunate to study with them, thinking it would improve my illustration, which it did, but it got me painting outside and improved the way I see and work as an artist. And then so soon that kind of just evolved into, now I see another direction. So I left a very lucrative illustration business and evolved into becoming a painter. So I totally walked away from, a good financial situation and a growing reputation in the illustration field to then pursue something that was like starting at ground zero again. And as you said, with the travel, I've always been a traveler, hitchhiked since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And traveled all around the country by myself sometimes, hitchhiking at 16 and whatever. And so the incorporation of painting and travel was a perfect fit. Yeah. And so I did that. But getting to where the portraits came in, actually, I was just asked by the Portrait Society of America to speak in Washington this May, coming up at their conference. So I thought that was kind of good, because I am known as a landscape painter.
Yeah.
And I think the name of my one of the presentations I'll call About Face. And
good.
The reason I named it that was because I went to China, for instance, as a landscape painter. But when I went there, I guess being around so many people and faces, it was interesting. I live in the woods in Taos, as you know, and we might not see another person for 3 weeks. So landscape is right out your door, and
the pond.
You don't have to get a model or this or that. So I went back to China by myself in 2011, I think it was. Didn't know a person, didn't know a word of Chinese, didn't paint portraits. And I just went to a massage parlor and met some girls. I said, would you pose for me? And so I hit the mother load. So all the girls would pose for me.
Yeah.
So that was like the perfect gig. So for a month, I just painted portraits. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know any reputation of what, my history was, which is good. I painted portraits, which is a subject, new to me. So I had no expectation. So again, like learning a sport like skiing or golf, if you've never done it, you're willing to fail, and, you accept your inadequacies and things like that. So there was a lot of no pressure. It felt very relaxed in a way, because I didn't say, oh, it's a terrible painting. I just moved forward, enjoy the process. So that kind of just opened up a whole new door to me. And so I went to China maybe, I think, 28 different times over the last 10 years, and went to all different areas, rural, high-end different places, some of the most primitive places you could imagine, and painted along the way landscapes and portraits, and got to practice my Chinese and meet so many different people. And so it opened up a lot of interesting things. And it was not something that the gallery, said, oh, we'd like your portraits, or actually it's quite opposite. We didn't want your portrait, you're known as a landscape painter. So I did it totally for myself. And many of those paintings, I have hundreds of them. And I did do a big show in Sedona one time with them. And I put them in a few different competitions, and won best of show on many of them, for some of them. So, but mainly I didn't display them, haven't really displayed them, and they were for myself, my own growth, my own inspiration.
Yeah, it's the Salmagundi.
Long conversation there.
Oh, no, that was great. That was great. I just remember at the Salmagundi, and we met Chris Agadini, who was your mentor, right? And a professor, I think, at Northern Arizona, if I'm okay.
Yes.
So, and I remember we had your reflections on the pond in the main area of the Salmagundi, and then we had some of your first probably done Chinese paintings. One that won the very big prize was the old man with the cigarette. Remember that? Yeah. And I loved that painting, especially, I mean, I would come back in and look and go, oh my gosh, there's a person way back there. And and how you worked all of that in. So, I'm sure that there was this recognition of painting something different in a portrait, but that you probably, knowing you as well as I do, you took some of the things that you learned in portrait painting and brought that over to plein air painting. I'm sure, because I mean, it ups your game. It's a totally different technique, but yet you learn so much from it. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, definitely. I got to fly. Definitely. Whatever, like when you're painting landscape, for instance, if you paint something difficult architecturally, for instance, that kind of helps your drawing, helps you get things in the right place, perhaps. Then in the evening, if you paint a sunset, you don't have time, you're just going on intuition. So that intuition exercise then goes back into something when you paint it more difficult, like, and then that architectural training gets your hand to maybe get it in the right place, when you're on the intuitive. Same with portrait, you have to be more accurate with the shapes in the right place. A tree can be very expressive and still look like a tree, but if you get a little too far out on your face, it won't look like Linda Fisler and stuff. So
it's okay if it doesn't look like me.
Yeah, but that's part of it.
Just make me look better. That's all.
For myself, I like to continually challenge different subjects, different locations, and just to keep it interesting for me.
Right. And I think I've always admired that about you, Kevin, is that you've always, it's like, I have an interest in portrait, I'm going to go do portrait. I have an interest in, going to China and doing China. I've always admired where, it's like, I'm not going to stay in this one place where I know I can continue to paint the way that I paint plein air and, be in galleries and make money. It's like, I'm going to go do this now. And I'm going to it's almost like I'm going to let people see that, not that it's not I'm going to let people see that I can do other things, but it's more like, I'm going to prove to myself that I can do that and I can do it well. And it's going to affect everything else that I'm doing. I've always admired your exploration into and adventures into other things. I've never seen fear in you. I haven't. Even though we haven't been, talking very much or whatever back and forth, I still follow you, and I still go, wow, there he goes again. So, no fear. So.
Well, I had fun. I got a couple pieces in here.
Sure.
I think we're going to talk about what we did in COVID or something, but here's a
we can do that too.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
This is actually
wow.
Does it look like a Buddha to you?
Yeah, I can see the eyes.
So from some of my travels to Bali or Bangkok or China, no matter where, some of the things you see influence you on stuff. So these are all the shells that are on my beach, that I pick up, the little funny little shells, this one here. And then this is a skull of a sea lion. And so I took this skull and I painted it, gold leafed it, and then I glued all these things on. Anyway, I've been creating a whole bunch of different things, just letting my mind want something. So during the COVID time, I don't think I painted for 15 months, but I did a whole bunch of creative stuff. Every day I felt like a kid in a day camp. It was fun.
Yeah, cool. So that's a little bit how COVID affected you, as you kind of took some downtime and explored other things. Which exploration is probably your middle name, right? I mean, I know it's Dan, but
but I was here for 18 months down on the beach in Mexico. And there were hardly no people there, because most of the people, a lot of Americans and Canadians live in the area that I'm at, but they all went back. And so there were maybe only 4 or 5 people in this whole area. So didn't see anybody. So every day I'd just walk on the beach. I'd find rocks. I started carving rocks. And whatever I would see, it just got me so excited. I couldn't wait to get up every day and go out exploring, like when we were kids, going into the woods and finding stuff.
Yeah.
It was really fun. And so little people thought I was going crazy, which it might have been, but I never, to be honest, I never felt more inspired. Like every day I would walk on the beach and find rocks that inspired me to look like something, and maybe carve into it. I just see something there, and I swore there was this being channeled from the spirits to find stuff. It was a really good feeling.
Yeah. I mean, in moving, like, I don't know how long you lived in Taos, but you have your Taos place, you have your place in Mexico where you're at right now. You've gone to China. I moved from Middletown, Ohio to Asheville, and it's just, I go out on hikes with friends, and they're 600 feet, 100 yards ahead of me, and I'm standing there just looking at the view and going, wow, and it's just, how can I capture that atmosphere, and how would I do that? So I'm like you, I'm trying to figure out how to capture, the mountains around Asheville, the Blue Ridge Mountains, and different things like that. All of the different tourist attractions like the Biltmore and all this is like, I love when somebody's actually outside painting the Biltmore, and I just go kind of walking by and go, yeah, like everybody else. Okay. Because they want to make sure they got that architecturally correct. And it's a beautiful place, but it's interesting. It's so stimulating to take yourself out of the way that you have been painting and say, how else can I do it? I've probably spent a lot more time out on the hiking trails and the bicycle, just looking around saying, how would I capture that? And my, 25 miles later, I'm like, oh, I guess I better turn around and cycle.
Yeah, it's hard not, sounds like you and like me, whenever I'm somewhere golfing or with my buddies, I'm so distracted visually, it's hard not to.
Yeah.
But that's how we're wired. So that makes it fun.
Yeah. So I can ask you that offline. I was going to ask you how long you're staying in Mexico, but that they don't need to know that. So, so let's talk a little bit about, what else did I say we were going to talk? We're going to talk about COVID, talk to me a little bit about the art ambassador, the colorful art ambassador. Tell me first of all, because I'm going to stumble over it. Art ambassadors for a colorful world. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And I know you went down to Guatemala and in November?
Yeah, I just got back. When did I go? November. Yeah.
November.
Yeah. November 15th, I got back.
Oh, okay.
And then prior to that, in August, we went to Peru, and that was good. Cusco, that was a phenomenal place. I loved it there.
Wow.
So that was really neat. And we painted up in Machu Picchu, and we've been doing a lot of things in Guatemala. And actually, there's a wonderful lady, Leslie Bear and Mel Dinkle, who started Shayla Aid Local Hope 35 years ago in Guatemala. And I met her 15 years ago, maybe. And we just hit it off. I was so inspired by her story and her energy and what she did down in Guatemala. I went down there right away with her, and that kind of inspired me to start my own foundation called Art Ambassador for a Colorful World. Because I go, let's say in China or in Mexico, whenever I'm somewhere, it seems like kids are always attracted to you when you're painting, and I like that. And so I started going to some really rural areas in Sichuan, China, and Yunnan, China, really right on the Laos border, and the most primitive school. I went there many, many times when it was just the muddiest little place you could imagine, and they transformed it into a very nice school now. But I got to work with the kids there every year for many years, and so I like to go to places that are difficult for the kids to get art supplies or things like that. They don't have art teachers, and it was just fun. And, and so we've been going down, doing trips down to the Guatemala, the one village, San Martin, that we work with over and over. And the kids, again, we've known them since they're young, and their parents and grandmas are weavers, expert weavers, like world-class weavers. And so we help them to keep that in their culture, give them opportunity. And the organization I work with, Shayla Aid, that I work together, just so they help us put together trips to bring adult painters. And then we do like teaching and mentoring and traveling and painting to Antigua, Quetzaltenango, Lake Atilan, different great places. And then in addition, we spend a few days in the small village working with the kids, and all the adult painters, if they like, they get involved with doing some of that activity, and they love it. It's just very touching. So with the COVID, we were doing a great project in Mexico here. I had about 500 of the school kids. The whole town came out. We did a big mural on one of the old buildings on the beach on the Malacan. And so we had all the kids involved with that. It was fun. That was literally the week before the lockdown of everything. So it kind of, until last year, you know, we really couldn't do any more programs because of the difficulty and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So that was nice. Like this year was the first time that you can go down to Guatemala, say, without the mask on, and it made a big difference and stuff.
Yeah, and having to worry about being able to get on a plane with you know,
So
and testing and all of that.
Yeah.
It was difficult.
Yeah, other people join us. So, you know, we'll be doing more of that. It's just a wonderful place and different places. And, you know, it's a small organization. And Lori Pupman is the vice president with me, and she's terrific. I can't do things without her there. It's really wonderful. So
great. Yeah. So when you're teaching the kids, I'm assuming you're not, you know, like they're not standing behind easels. Well, they may be standing behind easels, but what I'm getting at is it's not like how you teach your workshops. It's more them having fun with art, or
or giving them an opportunity. Like, you know, some of the little places, you know, you can't even get supplies. So one time I was able to buy ping pong paddles, you know, say, oh, we can draw some portraits on ping pong paddles. Like, what kind of supplies can you even get to some of these places? And, you know, just when one of the great projects we did recently down in Guatemala, they have the kite festival, which is right on the Day of the Dead weekend. So that they have these giant kites that are big as a house that they create, and hundreds of thousands of people come to this one area, and they let the kites go up to kind of greet their dead ancestors and kind of make a link between, you know, a communication link. Anyway, kites are a big historical factor in Guatemala. So we had the kids make their own kites and then try to fly them. That was fun. And then the wheat peels, the weavings that they weave for their clothing, we just had the kids design their own, you know, on paper and stuff. Seeing how creative these kids are, you know, how inherent some of their graphic thinking is, because, you know, when the ladies weave their clothing, it's coming out of their head, and it takes 3 months to make this complex design. It's just unbelievable. I'll send you some pictures, just, you know, as another thing, how I get inspired, you know, like I showed you that skull and the Buddha head, you know, how that gets into your head, and then you see things different that if you didn't explore a different country or culture, maybe you wouldn't think of that. And then the weaving, the color combinations that they put together are so different than what we would think of. And the kids had this, I think, inherently in their work. So I don't go really teach them. We may give them the supplies, the concept of what we're going to do, a little focus, but then we let them just have fun with it. And they really, you know, it's something that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, why don't you do it in the US? You know, I've done it all different places. And, you know, I do it where I happen to be. You know, and, you know, if you can make a couple kids happy, you know, what does it matter if you do it here or in Portugal or wherever it might be, right?
Right.
So, and when I say underprivileged kids, sometimes, you know, there's poor kids in the US too, but what we can have access to is so different than what little they can have access to. So, but again, it doesn't matter. Like this was one of, like, here's inspired. One day, during the COVID or a month, this is in Wanda's studios. I painted her chest with just different things that are very different than I would normally do. But some of those type of imageries and designs are kind of inspired by some of the things I see maybe down in Guatemala or wherever.
Right. Cool. So it's so helpful. Thank you. So you were saying that Lori travels with you to Guatemala. Do you have other folks that travel with you to, like, to Peru or to any of the other places?
Oh, well, lots of, she's with the Art Ambassador. She's been with me as my co-partner, mentoring partner, and also helping on the program itself. So she and I are the leaders on these recent ones. And then we get artists from all over who want to travel with us, you know. Cool.
You've really got a network going there, Kevin. Great. So that's good to hear. So I'm trying to think what else. So culturally, you've been to China, you've been to Guatemala. I know you've been to France. I know you've been to Italy or different places in Europe and all of that. And you really do immerse yourself into that, to each of their cultures, don't you? It provides even more.
Try to.
Yeah.
And, we spend a lot of time in Mexico, and my Spanish is not very good. When I was young, I was brilliant, but now it's not so good. And then, when we spent many years in France doing programs, I taught myself French, and it was so too. But and then the China, I taught that language. So the more you can kind of immerse yourself and get it part of, know the people, I think you get a deeper appreciation for where you're at. So it's a different than say going as a tourist quickly to a place, so. And then, for instance, in China, my books are translated in Chinese. So, I have a big reputation in China, so I can go many places, and I could connect with artists, from there or Europe, especially with Facebook, we can go anywhere and really feel like we have a relationship easily put together.
Yeah. Have you stayed in touch with Ben Ho and Mary May by chance?
I have not, but
you haven't? Okay.
Yeah, have you?
Yeah. No, I haven't actually. But watching him paint behind their gallery, I think about that almost every day. I mean, and when you were talking a little bit about the grid, and I watched him set some things up in his painting, it was not as much. I don't think it was I don't know how to say this, as extensive as I think, but you could tell that was there. I mean, you could see him drawing the lines, is how it started. I know you were off painting and getting set up because you were painting. So I was kind of in the middle watching you paint and watching Ben paint. And it's cool. Just, I learned so much just from standing there watching you guys paint for about an hour and a half, however long it was, versus me sitting there trying to capture the landscape. I took a few pictures and stuff, but that really left its mark in me. And
when you go to places and you could easily connect with other artists like John Crump,
I remember John.
But all over the world, it's kind of nice that we have that social media, that it is easy to meet some friends, in many different countries. You go to Norway, I'm sure you can connect with somebody.
It's fun. Yeah, that is fun and so helpful too. That social media can bring that to us. So what do you have coming up next? I know you said something about Portrait of America. You're going to be there. So
Juan and I are actually going to do a trip to South America. We're going to do a cruise, and we're going to do painting along the way. I think it's a 21-day cruise from Buenos Aires to Santiago. And so instead of jumping off and rushing to all the tourist locations, we'll use that as a little painting exploration thing. So we'll get to places that are interesting and do a painting probably at every stop that we do.
Yeah.
And then with China being locked down for so long, actually one of my good friends from China, she's going to come this Christmas. She's finally able to fly out. She's going to stay a month down here, and we're going to do some filming together for some programs over in China. And she's a great gal that I met very early on when I was just doing the volunteers with the kids. She was working for the government at that time, and I was the first one to ever take her out painting. And she got so inspired, she totally quit her job in the government. She wrote a book on watercolor painting. She's inspiring thousands of people, doing some online lessons and different retreats. So it totally changed her life.
Great.
And she actually named her little kid Little Kevin.
Oh, so, nice.
But he doesn't look like me. Wanda's not worried about that. So.
That's good.
He has big eyes, So anyway.
So Wanda's still painting?
And Wanda and I went down to Cabo San Lucas last week for a week, and we just kind of relaxed down there, just a slightly different location. And I got her back doing watercolor, and that kind of and she's amazing. She cannot paint for 6 months, and somehow she always gets better. I don't know what she does. It's kind of amazing.
She doesn't have any pressure. She doesn't have the pressure that you have, Kevin. So
Yeah. But actually, at this time in my life too, I'm enjoying it as much as I ever have, and I feel like there's no pressure. Like I don't push to sell things. I'm just doing them for myself, and the way you should do them.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a little bit of a conversation. As I said earlier, I recorded an art chat yesterday with Michael Harding, and it's really kind of funny. 2 days in a row that we were doing this, and both of you, Michael and you, have said the same thing, which is, you have to paint for yourself. Don't put that pressure on you to, say, I'm going to sell as many paintings or whatever. But the ones that you really put yourself into seem to be the ones that a lot of interest comes from. And
yeah. I think if you do it for the right reasons, you'll find the audience. Like you only have to find one other person that likes your painting, really. But, it's a different thing when you are making a career, which I did my whole life. You have to make money to survive, to continue to do what we do. But unfortunately, I have. But if you're truly don't have the necessity to sell, that gives you more freedom to take chances and don't worry about some things. So with that pressure, let's say you are feeding a family and that's your job, definitely you're going to feel a different pressure than someone who is truly doing it for their pleasure and a hobby. And when you do approach it that way, then usually someone comes up to you and say, oh, would you sell that thing?
Right. Yeah. It's like I said, it's always interesting to watch where you're going and what you're doing and what you're exploring and the adventures that you have. It's interesting to be on the outside looking in, so to speak, on that kind of thing. So, is there anything else that's coming up that you might want to talk about?
So then I got the portrait society convention in May, and then I'm going to go to Italy for a little bit of painting, then back to Taos. And
but there won't be snow on the ground. You won't be able to ski.
Exactly. Well, I am going back in February for skiing.
Oh, you are? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So after Chile, I'll go back to Taos for a month of skiing. So that would be perfect.
Yeah, watch out. Kevin's going to be on the slopes.
I'm actually pretty good. I'm really good. I don't know how I had a little mini stroke a few years back, and I forgot all my bad habits of everything. So I'm better golfer, better skier.
Oh, good. Oh my goodness. Well, sorry to hear about the mini stroke, but I'm glad that you're golfing better and skiing better. So yeah. Wow. I didn't know that. So quit eating that Grater's ice creams I used to send you.
I know, exactly.
Oh yeah. So anyway, I think we pretty much covered a lot of stuff, unless there's anything else in addition that you want to talk about. Or
well, I'm proud of you. Keep on doing what you're doing, and always doing some nice things for other people too. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot. So yeah. So again, check out Kevin's website, kevinmcpherson.com. Also check out his other organization, and Art Ambassadors for a Colorful World. That also has a website that you can look at. And for the YouTube audience, that will be displayed for you. But for the audio audience, if you are audio only audience, again, it's kevinmcpherson.com, and Google Art Ambassadors for a Colorful World. It'll be the first link that comes up. So no worries with that. Kevin, thank you for your time. I appreciate you doing this. It was great to catch up with you as well. So
thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So hopefully we'll stay in touch more. Okay, everyone. Thanks for listening. Bye, Kevin. Thank you. Art Chat TV is brought to you by Linda Fisler Fine Art. Visit her website at lindafisler.com.